welcome back to my channel. This is Dom, and a new sort of occasional series that I'm going to be doing, more for the historical buffs rather than the wargamers. So a little while ago I picked this book up when I was in Shropshire. I go to Shropshire an awful lot, stay in Ludlow, which is a wonderful place if you ever get to go there. And this book I picked up was Castles of the Marches. Now, this is a really geeky book if you're into castles, as I am. This actually lays out a list and a little bit of detail on all the March castles. Now, people might be aware the March region is the border area, basically between Wales and England. It was ruled by the Monmouthshire lords. They were assigned initially by William Conqueror when he invaded Britain, and he decided that the Welsh were going to be too much trouble to deal with, so he gave huge swathes of the border area to these Monmouthshire lords who were like little kings in their own rights, had the right to build castles and basically carry out whatever justice they felt necessary in the border regions to keep the dastardly Welsh out. Later on they invaded Wales, and anyway, it's a different story. But this book shows the basics of where all these castles were built, and there's about 120 of them listed in here. Not all of them still exist. Some of them are just little, piles of stone. Some of them not even that. Some of them have been changed from their original castle design into something more grand. But I thought it's a fun project for me and Mrs. Boots to go and visit every single one of them in this book. And actually we found a few more besides who aren't technically Marcher castles, but also damn good castles. So this series will basically be taking me through all these different castles, a little bit of historical background, and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please share, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the castles. So this is the castle of Skenfrith, which is formed parts of the three castles, which was Grossmont, Skenfrith, and the White Castle. And it's an amazing place. As I mentioned in the video about Grossmont, these three castles were a deliberate defence against marauding Welsh coming into English-controlled parts of Wales and ultimately into England themselves through a particularly lower part of the valley. So they were kind of designed to be defended as a threesome, if you like, a group of three castles. But Skenfrith is very different to many castles you'll see. Traditionally, they sit on a hill and overlook a strategic point. Skenfrith is in a village, but it's also very low and is surrounded on multiple sides by hills. And in fact, one of the problems with this castle was it flooded on a regular basis. They believe it was actually designed to defend a waterway, a river that was usable and navigable by shipping until it silted up much later on and is now no longer as accessible as it once was. Still very popular. When we were there, it had been quite warm, and a lot of people have obviously used it as a swimming spot just outside the castle. But as I say, for the locals who lived in the castle at the time when they were built, probably not so pleasant because it did flood apparently on multiple occasions. And it also affected the production or the building of the castle itself. The keep is absolutely enormous and had to be because, as I say, it's quite low lying, and the hills around are very much higher than the castle, so it's completely overlooked. So by having a very large keep, it allows it to be have a chance to see what's coming before it arrives. So as with Grossmont, Skenfrith was one of the Norman castles established in England and Wales after the invasion in 1066 by the Normans. And it was there to protect the route from Wales to Hereford. Originally commissioned by William Fitz Osborne, the Earl of Hereford, the castle originally would have been wooden and sort of a traditional earth and wood structure. In 1135, a major Welsh revolt took place, and as a result, King Stephen decided to form the three castles into three castles. So Skenfrith, Grosemont, and the White Castle became its own lordship, known as the Three Castles, and it continued to play a leading role in defending the region for several centuries after that. At the end of the 12th century, Skenfrith was rebuilt in stone. In 1201, King John gave the castle to a powerful royal official, Hubert de Burgh, along with the other two castles in the three castle set. During the course of the next few decades, it passed back and forward between him and other families and the crown itself. Hubert actually levelled the old castle and built a new rectangular fortification with round towers and a circular keep. And in 1267, it was granted to Edmund, the Earl of Lancaster, and remained in his hands, or his family's earldom hands, and later that of the Duchy of Lancaster until 1825. Much with all the three castles, when Edward I conquered Wales in 1282, it removed much of their military value, and by the 16th century, it had fallen into ruin and started to fall down. Eventually, the National Trust took control of it in 1936, and it's now managed by the Welsh Heritage Group. As I said, it's an amazing castle. It's being so close to the river, and the fact it floods would have made it quite unpleasant. Skenfrith sits right on the river Monmouthshire, and it's, as I say, that's pretty much dominated its function. They believe that there was a sort of a key just outside one of the gates, which is probably why this castle was so important in its day and why they persisted with it, even though it was very low lying and flooded. It was originally, when Hubert rebuilt the castle, it was obviously had stone fortifications from there on, and was formed of four walls. When it was originally rebuilt in stone, the walls were very high. One is 80 metres high, the other two are 60 metres, and one is 40 metres, and was built from old red sandstone. It was also originally protected by a stone-riveted water-filled moat, which was about 9 feet deep and 46 feet wide, which was fed by the river. The moat's pretty much all filled in now and grassed over, and the curtain wall still survives up to a height of about 5 meters or 16 and a half feet roughly, and would have originally been topped by a 6-foot high parapet and protective timber hoardings. It has circular towers on each corner, which were probably only used for storage and defence, 3 of which still survive. The northwest tower having reduced to its foundations. A water gate on the eastern side of the castle led down to the river, which, as I say, was probably why this castle was where it was. The original 2-storey hall stretched across the southwestern side of the castle, but only foundations now survive. And originally the hall comprised of a long room on the north side and a smaller chamber to the south, although the subsequently northern section was subdivided. The 3-storey circular keep in the middle of the castle is about 12 metres or 30, just shy of 40 feet high, and 10 metres or 32 feet across, with a protruding protruding staircase tower in its southwestern side. It closely resembles similar keeps built during the period by Philip II and at Pembroke by William Marshall. Its staircase tower was similar to others built across the Welsh marches at the time. Earth was piled up around the 2-metre plinth at the base of the keep, probably to defend the base of the hills, with the result, base of the walls, with the result that it closely resembles a moat, but actually the walls carry down to ground level from there. And originally, it would have been topped with defensive wooden hoardings and an external staircase reaching up to the entrance on the first floor. As I say, it's phenomenally tall, but probably would have needed to have been, given the fact the castle is overlooked. There's no evidence that the castle was ever threatened militarily in any way. Grosmont, its sister castle, there was a battle outside of that, but Skenfrith seems to have escaped any kind of military intervention. And as is the case with a lot of these March fortifications, it sort of just fell into disrepair as time went by before being passed into public ownership. Again, it's a lovely place, not quite as remote as Grosmont, and certainly not as remote as the White Castle. It's on a main road, but it's quite a small main road. But there's a nice pub with a very nice ancient or medieval bridge over the river a bit further down, which is well worth a visit. And certainly, if you're coming out to this area of Abergavenny, near Abergavenny to Monmouthshire, it's well worth visiting all three of these castles, the three castles. But Skenfrith is definitely worth it.